Welcome to Napa Valley Inside Out. I'm Latif Hasan, and I am delighted to be hosting this podcast, shining a light on one of the most beautiful and coveted lifestyles in the world. If you're interested in developing a property, planting a vegetable garden, making olive oil, fashion, architecture, interior design, county rules and regulations, biking paths, art, getting into the wine business, farming practices, the tax benefits of owning a vineyard, or the ultimate private tours and tastings, and all the fabulous annual cultural events we enjoy here, and so much more, then you won't want to miss this show. Every week I will be interviewing amazing talent, vintners, entrepreneurs, leaders, consultants, event planners, and more. They will share their knowledge, experience, advice, goals, passions, and their best-kept secrets. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we have Nena Talcott and Bonnie Storm in the house, and they're going to be talking to us about their olive oil, Grove 45. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here.
This is really exciting. I recently did a blog on olive oil because I know everybody is so interested in it, and many people that come to the Valley want to have a little olive, make their own olive oil and give it away. I mean, how many people do we know that do that? Many,
lots.
Right? So I'd love to hear the story, the road to Napa Valley for both of you. Can we start with you, Nena?
Sure. I started coming to the Napa Valley in the late 60s with my then boyfriend, who became my husband. And after he finished his medical training in San Francisco in 1974, we moved to the Valley permanently, and he opened his practice in Napa.
And what was the Valley like back then in 1974?
Well, there were less than 50 wineries.
Wow.
There were still a lot of walnuts and prunes. It was very quiet. There were no restaurants to speak of. There were coffee shops. I think St. Helena had 5 coffee shops on Main Street. No fancy restaurants. The social life was square dance.
Interesting. So what was the allure for you?
Well, my husband at the time wanted to start his private practice here. He was also raised in St. Helena.
Oh, that's the difference. Yeah. And what about you, Bonnie?
My story, I was raised in Sonoma, so I ended up not far from where I grew up. And Sonoma back in the day, there were wineries, but as a kid, it was just what was there. We didn't really grow up with any agricultural background, or I certainly didn't. But I ended up in the Napa Valley. My former husband and I were looking for a lifestyle change, and we were thinking about, electronically commuting from all over the country. We looked in Montana and ended up looking in the Napa Valley because my parents were still alive living in Sonoma, and it was close by. So we ended up buying a ranch in the eastern foothills of the Napa Valley in Childs Valley in 1992. Subsequently, we divorced, but still remained very good friends. And I got involved sort of through the back door with the newly burgeoning California olive oil industry. Didn't have olive trees, didn't even really have the ranch at the time. But around 1990, a woman named Lila Yeager, who had Rutherford Hill Winery, started a little organization called the Northern California Olive Oil Council. And she started a little production tour to Italy. And we had olive trees where I was living with my former husband in Woodside. We had landscape trees. So I decided to jump on board and go on this olive oil production tour in Italy and just caught the bug. And subsequently we bought the ranch, and I ended up buying 1,000 trees in Tuscany and imported them. And all of a sudden I'm going, what have I done?
I would think.
What have I done?
1,000 trees.
Yeah.
And they were 3 feet high, I think I read.
They were bare root and, about 1 meter tall and about like that. And they overwintered in my greenhouse. And next year, 1995, I planted them in the ground, and here we go.
Now, how much do olive trees grow each year?
Well, it's kind of like vines. I mean, you're going to get some production after about 3 years.
Right.
Full production, I'd say 5 to 7 years. Our groves are, the main grove is 4 Tuscan varieties. And so when they're all fully mature, you get the real deal. The earlier oil can be a little spiky in some direction depending on which variety is more mature than the other. At about 7 years, everything kind of smooths out, and you'll get.
So you bought 1,000 trees.
I did.
And so tell us about the spacing. What's the best spacing for olive trees?
Well,
because if you started at 3 feet, how old are they now?
Well, do them. What are they? 20,
no, sorry, not how old.
years.
Sorry, 24 years. How tall and how big are
Well,
they?
they're not very tall because we keep them low. But let me tell you about the spacing, because this is, learning by the seat of your pants.
Right.
I imported 1,000 trees. I was one of the really pioneers of the resurgence of this industry, and there were a couple of other groves that had been planted. And there was a fellow in Healdsburg named Ridgely Evers. And I said, Ridgely, I'm going to bring in these trees and I'm going to plant them on 15-foot centers. And he said, well, that's too close together. And I said, well, I can't hardly believe that. And I planted them on 15-foot centers, which was really way too close together. And subsequently, Meadowood Resort approached me about transplanting some olive trees. And as soon as I took out every other tree, so now they're on 15 by 30-foot centers, the trees just went, thank you! This is so cool. We have sunlight, we have air, we have,
Well, I have to say, those trees on the driveway to Meadowood are the most spectacular trees I've ever seen.
Well, they're my legacy, I say,
Beautiful.
Well, a lot of it is how they're pruning them as well.
Yes.
And the valley floor is very luxuriant soil.
I was just about to get to that. So tell us about the pruning. What is the best way to prune?
Bonnie can tell you that.
Yeah.
She's the farmer.
Oh, that's right.
We pruned sort of haphazardly for a lot of years. And I have a lovely couple that live on my ranch and help me with the ranching, not the olive so much, but they have a landscape maintenance company. And Bev Lincoln came to us one day and she said, I would really like to take over the pruning of these olive trees. And I don't know how to do it. I don't have that vision.
It's sculpting. I mean,
it is, and
art.
there are many different styles. We have the old-fashioned style, which is the vase, the vase shape, which is open center.
I was going to ask you about that.
So we feel for our trees, it's the best for the soil, and it's been proven by our production, and our yield has increased. And Bev has been pruning for about 5 years. She's out there pruning right now, and she just keeps the trees open. She takes a few big cuts every year. We try to keep the trees down so the men don't have to get on ladders. And honestly, since we've started this much more scientific, or at least professional pruning program, the yields have gone way up. The alternate bearing factor.
Production's more consistent.
Yeah, the production is more consistent.
Because the sun gets, when you do the vase, in the shape of the vase,
Right.
as you call it, I didn't realize that was what it was called, then the sun can come in.
And the air circulates, and it's just, and all the fruit is on the outside of the tree, so you don't have the guys jamming in there through brush and stuff and getting their eyes poked out.
Yeah.
So it's made a big, huge difference. I think it's really important.
And so they get up and they cut the branches inside the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when is that done?
Right now.
Oh, in the spring.
Well,
You start in the winter.
you start in the
That's
winter.
what I thought.
You start in the winter, but
Well, you got nearly 1,000 trees.
well, we don't have 1,000 trees anymore because we sold, so many. But Bev had a problem with her neck. We got her an electrical battery-powered pruner, so she can make a cut this big around with this little.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a lot easier on her, but she got a little late start because she had something with her neck. So anyway, she's out there now. I don't care. I used to agonize if she'd cut a branch that had an olive on it. I would just go, Bev, what are you doing? Now, I don't care because I know we're still going to have a much better production because of this light and air circulation. So she's plugging away at it, and it's Bonnie, Nena, and Bev. That's it, basically.
Unbelievable.
And so it's only one person doing the pruning, so it takes a while. It takes several months.
I mean, when she came to me and said that she had hurt her neck, she was in tears. She said, I don't think I can do the pruning this year. I said, Bev, don't worry about it. It doesn't really, it'd be okay if we didn't do it this year. But she kind of recovered, and she's out there now. And
so it's done every year.
She's in her office. Yeah.
But this year we could have passed on it.
We could have, but it's going to be better that we're doing it.
Well, that's interesting for the viewers because so many people want to plant olives on their properties when they're buying here or have a property here already. And so, what about soil?
But they shouldn't.
But that, no, yeah, I know.
Get Swan Hills.
Yes, yeah.
The
come
ones
and
that
buy,
don't bear fruit.
Yeah, and then come and buy Grove 45. Tell me about the soil. Is it as important as it is for vineyards?
Well, you know, we say olive trees are weeds. They'll grow anywhere. We've got a friend who his olive grove is planted on rocks, basically.
Well, they don't like water. I know they don't like a lot of water.
Well, they like drainage. They like good drainage. My
Good
soil is Tehama loam, so it drains very well.
Yeah.
And it's actually, it's not as luxuriant as the valley floor, but the trees are in the aquifer. I have a pretty high aquifer where I am. I do irrigate, but the trees seem to like the soil just fine, and I think they're very adaptable. They grow anywhere, all over the world. You know, it's hard to kill an olive tree.
I know. It's
I haven't done it.
interesting.
I haven't been able to.
What does it mean when leaves are yellow?
Part of it is just natural.
Is it?
I don't have any disease problem where I am. There's a bit of attrition, even though they keep their leaves year-round. Leaves turn yellow and fall off.
Right.
But there are also several diseases that I'm not that familiar with. There's something called peacock spot. Because I don't have an issue, I'm sorry, I don't.
Could be a lack of nutrients.
Yeah,
could be.
that's what I think with my clients is a lack of something.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
and you can
too much water, something.
I don't think it's too much water. I think it's more a nutrient issue.
And you can take leaf samples to labs, and they'll let you know precisely what you need.
Really. How many months a year? I mean, how much work is it in terms of, you know, consistently being out there? By comparison, say, to a vineyard, you know?
Well, since I don't know what goes on in the vineyard, I'd say right now for me, because I'm the farmer, it's really busy because I'm trying to keep ahead of the mowing and suckering, and Bev
It's
does
very
a pruning.
similar.
Yeah,
It's very similar during the growing season. You've got to keep the weeds down.
Right.
You've got to get the suckers off the trees, just like you do on a grapevine, getting the suckers off so they don't take the food and the energy from the part of the plant you want to grow and produce the fruit. So it's in a way, it's pretty similar.
But in the winter, when they're sleeping,
There's nothing to do.
I just drink wine.
Well, I tell you, one of the things that was so interesting to me, I said this in a blog, I was doing a cleanse, and at the end of the night, it was a liver cleanse. At the end of the night, I had to have a half a cup of grapefruit juice and a half a cup of olive oil.
That'll juice you right up.
Yeah, I was supposed to mix them. I'm like, oh, I can't mix them, but I can swig, you know?
Yeah.
So I did that, and then the next day I thought to myself, oh, I wonder, you know, Siri's so handy all the time. You're always researching. I said, I wonder how many calories are in olive oil. I looked it up, and I almost had to be put on oxygen. 1,910 calories per cup. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. I didn't, but it's all good stuff.
I was raised.
But those are good calories.
They're good, yeah, I know.
It's not like eating 1,000 calories of sugar.
But I'm so glad because, like, I was raised on a Mediterranean diet. I live on and I just pour olive oil like it's going out of fashion on my salads, etc.
Don't
But
stop.
I'm a little.
Don't worry
cautious
about
now.
those calories because those are really so good for you.
I didn't have to worry about them when I was 30.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, so you're doing all the farming. How many olive trees do you have now?
I have about 513.
Right. So when you talk about
Plus or minus.
so when you talk about the spacing, what did you call it? 15.
15 by 30. It's 15 within the rows and 30 between the rows.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
Right.
One of those.
Yeah.
You know.
Right. How much land do you have on your property?
In olives?
No, just how
In
big
general, it's 235 acres plus or minus. So it's a nice ranch. Most of it's really steep. We're grazing cattle on the part that isn't olive groves, and about 4.5 acres of olives.
So you're busy.
Well, you know, I'm busy now. I'm crazy busy now.
Yeah, that's a big piece of land to take care of.
We have tours and tastings coming through, and I want the
Oh,
place
you
to
do?
look.
I want to go through and hear about this. Okay.
Yeah, well, you know, this just sort of happened. It's a funny story. Nina will relate that
good.
one.
You want to hear about it now?
Yeah. Tell us.
So we were contacted 2 years ago by a freelance journalist who writes a lot of articles for New York Times travel section and other national publications, and she was doing an article about the best olive oils available in the United States for, it was Fortune magazine, I believe.
Yeah.
And so she contacted us, and we were in the article. It was a lovely article. And then about 2 weeks later, she contacted me again, and she said, do you guys do tours and tastings? Because I want to write an article for the New York Times travel section about other things to do in the Napa Valley. And I said, no, we don't. And she said, well, do it. Send me a tour outline. And I said, well, do we really want to do that? And she said, of course you do. And so we developed a tour, and I sent the information to her, and it ended up that our picture was in the New York Times.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
We got a double dip. We got a Friday and Sunday.
Yeah, and so now we offer tours and tastings for up to 6 people at a time by appointment only. It's not cheap because it's a lot of work for us to do it. We don't have any help, and they have all day if they want to hang around at the ranch. They get all the wine they want, all from local producers in the Childs Valley area or from friends of ours in the Napa Valley.
Nice lunch.
We do a lovely alfresco lunch and give them a tour of the property. And Bonnie's property is so unique and so different than anything that people are used to seeing when they come to the Napa Valley that nobody ever wants to leave.
I can imagine.
Yeah, so it's lovely, and then they go home with a bottle of oil. So
tell us about the tour. I mean, you told us a little bit. They have lunch. So what do they do on the tour? And
they come, and we always greet them in the driveway with a bottle of sparkling wine, and then we sit down and get to know them. Introduce ourselves, and they introduce themselves, and it's just kind of a meet and greet.
And it's always been we've never had a bad experience. I mean, it's just always been so great.
People are great. Our first group tour were 6 28-year-old girls. Yeah. And we thought, what are we going to talk to 28-year-old girls about? I mean...
And they ended up on the ground, crawling around under the walnut trees, putting walnuts in
so much fun.
Oh, my God, I love that. When was that?
And then they sent their mothers.
A couple of years ago.
Oh, so you started this a couple of years ago?
Yeah. Just about 2 years ago.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And then you make the lunch?
Yes, we do everything.
And you sit with them?
Absolutely.
Oh, that is
They get us for the day.
Special.
Well, it's a totally different picture of the Napa Valley. I mean, yes, it's the Napa Valley, but it's a time warp where I am. Yeah. And the cows will walk by, and I've got horses and dogs that jump on the table and eat the salami. I mean, it's just a different experience.
It. So where do people go? Do they go to your website to learn about this? Grove45.com. Is that your website?
It is on our. Yeah, it's on the last What's New section.
Oh, I'm going to do a blog on that.
Oh, cool.
Oh, great.
Yes, I am. I think that's going to hit my monthly newsletter.
All right. But you need to know what the price is because
that's okay.
It's $150 a person.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Nothing.
that's
great. Some people are
great.
shocked by that, but it costs us more than that to do it.
Yeah,
and as I say, they get to go home with a bottle of oil. They have all they can eat and drink. And there's no time limit on it, really.
Unbelievable.
So we'll do a little tasting. Nena leads a tasting.
Yep. We do just a very rudimentary olive oil 101 tasting, just to show people how you taste olive oil. And I'm not a trained, taster or master taster by any means. I just know what I like.
Yes.
And I like our oil.
Yeah.
But, we just give them the basics of how you go about tasting olive oil.
It's like real estate. I always say people don't come here to buy real estate. They come here to buy a lifestyle.
Yeah. Exactly.
Having that experience is like, where do you get that?
Yeah.
I mean, and then people love being with the owners, and particularly owners that have been in the valley for so long. Because this is just, people see this as such a romantic, sexy, place to come to.
Right.
And having those experiences, I mean, look, we pay $1,000 to go to an event at the Napa Valley Festival,
Yes.
I mean, I think that's great value. I really do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, truly.
Sometimes, you kind of say, well, it's $150. Some people say, that's great, we'll be there. Other people, you never hear from them again.
Look what they're charging just for a tasting. I'm not talking about even really expensive wines, but look what it costs to go to a tasting today. And they get lunch and the whole experience. Fantastic. I love it.
Funny plumbing in my funny ranch house. And
I love it.
And they get us.
I know. I mean, truly, that's the best of all. I mean, really. Yeah.
Well, you'll have to ask some of them if it is.
Well, as I say, it's always been really fun. We've never had a grumpy person. We had who cares?
No,
it's been
fun.
terrific.
And we usually end up staying connected with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I love that.
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is
we
really
still,
nice.
yeah, there's some people, Bruce and Marie Rosen from wherever they're from.
York.
Yeah, from New
Brooklyn.
York. They're following us on, Instagram, and we communicate.
I
and,
love that.
Yeah,
That's so great.
Yeah.
This is the same in the wine business. I know a lot of people who, they're so involved in their wine business. I mean, God, they don't need to work ever again in their life.
Right.
Exactly.
But it's because of the people that they
Yeah.
meet. And they complain, oh my God, it's so much work and we're going to sell. And then I go, but what about the people? They go, yeah, we love the people.
Yeah.
They don't want to stop meeting these incredible
Exactly.
people that come from all walks of life.
Yeah. Well, it's been terrific.
That's part of the fun of what we're doing. I mean, this is not a money-making proposition for us. Not at the, we produce 350 cases a year. In order to make money, you'd have to produce triple that to really.
Right. And then we'd have to hire people. I mean, we literally.
Well, we'd have to be on the road all the time, and we're just not willing to do that. This is, this is about utilizing what grows on Bonnie's ranch, having something to do that we like doing, meeting people, as you say, and keeping busy.
Yeah.
Because if you did the math, you know how
Oh,
old we
no,
are.
I know. Oh, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. But so you're the marketing person. So how do you sell your wine? Oh, sorry. How do you sell your oil?
Latif, we've been really, really fortunate from the very first year that we produced Grow 45. An article came out, a full-page picture.
The first year?
Yeah.
We'd produced 60 cases, and we were nervous as,
Yeah.
I remember
this
that.
article comes out, and it's in Travel and Leisure magazine, and we had a young lady that we'd met on a bicycling trip in Bali the year before, and she worked for American Express Publishing, and she sent us an email, and she said, a galley just came across my desk, and it's a picture of your olive oil. It's going to be featured in Travel and Leisure.
Yeah.
And so what it was this author wrote an article, and it was the 8 best olive oils in the world.
Oh, I love it.
And ours was one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, where did she find us? Well, we were at Murray's Cheese in New York, one of the few places we ever went to and did a cold call to sell.
Oh, I love that.
And so when that happened, we started getting calls from all over the country. It was amazing.
Well, they have a presence in Grand Central Station as well, so people going through the to and from, they go through the food court and see our container.
But nothing happens by accident.
No, and then every year we seem to get an article or some kind of an interview for some national publication.
Yeah,
We've been
unsolicited national press somehow.
We've been in, Sunset. We've been in C Magazine. We've been in.
Oh, it's fantastic.
A lot more we just can't think of.
Yeah, I can't even think.
Yeah.
They're all on our
Yeah.
website. All the
Yeah.
articles are there on our website and available to be read. But so we feel very fortunate, just like the New York Times article. And that's what sells our oil for us. And then now, this is our 9th harvest together. And so now we've kind of developed a cult following.
Oh, I'm
Because
sure.
we're not, our olive oil is expensive. And probably.
As it should be.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's in a very special container. And it's all hand done. There's no mechanized farming or harvesting or anything.
Right.
So it's expensive to produce.
Yes. So show us the packaging because I think it's fabulous. And then you can tell us why you use this packaging. So rather than glass, this is actually the first olive oil I've seen. It's aluminum.
It's extruded aluminum. You can tell the story because you.
It's extruded aluminum, and it has a food grade liner, so the oil doesn't come in contact with the aluminum. The bottle comes from France, as well as the label comes from another area of France. When Bonnie and I decided to go into business together, we decided that we weren't going to produce a product that went on the shelf and looked like everybody else's, that we needed to have something that was, better, looked better, and stood out. It's just like if you want to put a wine on the market, what's going to make people grab it and put it in their basket.
Right.
And so we knew we wanted something metal because it keeps the UV rays from adulterating the oil.
Yes.
The 3 worst enemies to fresh olive oil are oxygen, heat, and ultraviolet rays. So this solves that problem. We had a devil of a time finding what we wanted, and we worked with a friend of ours who is a package designer, and basically he's a perfumer. He's got a nose.
Yeah.
And we went down to his office and saw Solito kind of exacerbated because we couldn't find what we wanted. And he came out of the back room with this bottle, and Bonnie and I just jumped on it. We said, that's
He
it.
said, what do you think,
Fantastic.
ladies? And we said, yeah, but
That's
how
it.
much is it? And he told us, and we said, oh my God, Gary, we can't do that. So he sent us to a glass lady in Napa who had beautiful Tuscan chunky glass. It was fantastic.
Hand-blown Italian stuff.
More expensive than this expensive
Yeah.
item.
Yeah.
But she also had these pewter labels kind of laying on the table. They came from France. We said, oh my God.
We're
We
meant to
said,
have
so we go right back, we take a handful of samples of labels and we go right back down to the office in Sausalito, and we said, all right, we'll take the bottle, but what do you think of this label? And we all went nuts for it.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
And then our friend designed it really took about 25 minutes
Yeah.
to design the label, sitting there with
Yeah.
a computer and a gal who had a program where she could do the artwork. And we said, that's it.
Yeah,
Do it.
he took an Hermes old mail bag, and he said, this is kind of the font I see.
Hermes.
We went, yeah.
That looks good.
That looks good.
Oh my God, I
So we
love
put
it.
these little Cartier screws in the corners, a little bit off.
We said, well, that's good.
Now, did I
Done.
read that you're actually putting them on yourself?
We
Yeah, we
have to
do.
hand apply every front label because it won't go through a bottling line.
You put
too
how long does that take?
not bad. 10
Takes a-
days, 6 days, 8
Oh,
days.
no, it only took us a week this year.
Yeah, well, we had
But
some
how
help this year.
wonderful that you are just creating this
Yeah.
olive oil. You're doing it yourself.
It's pretty
all
cool.
organic.
Yeah.
It's all by hand. You do your packaging.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because we're running out of time, I've got to get to some important questions. Like, what does cold pressed mean?
Nothing.
Nothing. What it really means is you didn't add any heat or chemicals to extract the oil from the olives. If you got an olive cold, you couldn't get any oil out of it. It would
Right.
It would solidify.
Right.
So you're not cooling the olives. You're just not heating them. So basically, you don't press olives anymore either. You mill them or process them.
Pressing refers to the old-fashioned way of doing it, where the paste, you make a paste in the mill, stack it on these fiber mats, put it on a spindle, and then it presses from the bottom up like this, and the oil runs off the side, and that's free run. And it may or may not be extra virgin even because the mats are dirty. In any case, what the practice is in Europe, and I'm sorry, Nena, I stepped
go
on your
ahead.
toes, but they process that paste over and over and over. So the first pressing or milling
Right.
will be extra virgin. It falls within a range of acidity that's totally quantifiable. They use the paste again, and each time they reuse the paste, they maybe add a little something, 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 and that's where the heat part comes in, and that's why this cold press bugaboo came about. In reality, any California oil is the cold press is just
It means
Yeah.
nothing.
It
It's
means
just
nothing.
but it's a term that everybody thinks means something.
Exactly. I only used to buy olive oil years ago when I lived in Australia.
Yeah.
That had cold pressed on it because I thought it meant something.
Australian oil is just
Yeah.
great oil. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in the modern world. It's
Yeah.
new
But
new world.
basically, when that's said, it just means that no heat or talc has been added to help extract the oil, because
Right.
that's what you do after the first milling when you reuse the paste. We don't do that here, but in Europe it's very common.
Right.
So your first milling would be your extra virgin, the second one's virgin, the next one is olive oil, the next one is lamp oil.
No, it's pure. It's virgin pure, and then I think Lampada is the worst.
Yeah.
That's the one
It's like the
that's
fourth
the
or
lamp
fifth
oil.
processing of
Right.
the paste.
But something I think is really important to bring up, since we're getting close to the end here, what you should look for when you're buying any
Yeah.
olive oil, whether it's Californian or European. Look at the back label, see if there's a harvest date.
Ah.
Yeah, and
And a seal that certifies.
that's right.
Certified.
So you want a seal either from the International Olive Oil Association or the California Olive Oil Council. And if the seal's on there, those are the two organizations that certify that your oil is extra virgin. It's gone through a lab test,
right.
and it's also gone through a taste panel that there's no defects in it.
Well, that's really good advice.
And,
Yeah.
and also with the harvest date, you should not buy an oil that's more than 24 months past the harvest date.
And
Right,
hopefully not
because
more than
it
a year.
normally only lasts 2 years, right?
Well,
What's-
it can last longer. I found a bottle of our oil from 2013, and it's in my kitchen right now.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have the bright, peppery, fresh fruit, but
Right.
the oil's not rancid. There's
No.
nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it. It
Yeah.
just got softer with
Yes.
time. Olive oil's not like wine. It doesn't get better with time.
Yeah.
The minute you pick the olive, as Bonnie says, it starts to
like little peaches, it
Denigrate.
starts
Yeah.
to degrade.
So what would you say is the difference? There's obviously a huge difference between local and imported olive oil.
Well, there are many great imported olive oils, but do we know which ones they are?
No, I mean, I always think that
And they've
a lot of
traveled.
them, because of the price being so inexpensive, and I know how many olives it takes. What did I have here? It takes
A boatload.
2,000 olives to make nearly a liter of extra virgin olive
That
oil.
would depend on the variety.
Yeah.
You can't really make a blanket statement like that.
Right.
Big
But it
olive,
takes a
small.
boatload.
It takes
It takes a boatload.
Yeah.
So
It's-
I often think, you can buy it for like $10, $12, $15, 750 mil. I'm like, this has got to be cut.
Latif, with all the movement around the country for everybody wanting local, they want all their produce, and just like, with our restaurants here, they want to have their own gardens, so their
Right.
produce comes right from the local area. Why don't they want California olive oil?
Yeah, interesting.
Why are they using imported olive
I
oil?
would agree with that. Do you sell your olive oil online? Do you find that people are buying your olive oil from your
We
website?
do not sell direct to the public.
Nena's the shipping department, so
I'm not. We only do wholesale.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But we list on our website under purchase, where to purchase, places that you can buy it online.
Right.
So, and we list everywhere in the country where our oil is sold.
That's great
And I
because
keep that up to date.
I love the packaging. It's a great gift.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we've just been told to wrap it up.
Okay.
That went so
that way
fast.
it
sure
super
did.
fast. I have more to say.
I know. Did we miss anything really
No,
important?
we didn't get to talk about ourselves yet.
Thank you so much for
well, thank
coming on the
you.
show. It was fantastic.
It was
Yeah.
delightful.
Thank you very, very much. And did everybody hear that? Don't keep your olive oil by the stove because it's not good. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining us.